Time keeps on leaving and we keep on moving. When do we pass on our wisdom to the youth? My veteran story, lost arts discussions, fireside chats with a bourbon or two. It's time to hear the stories by our military veterans. Get yourself ready. It's the Lost Arts Podcast. The Lost Arts with Andrew Cox. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Lost Art Podcast. That podcast is giving a voice to our veterans. I'm your host, Andrew Cox, and today we'll be having my veteran story with Marine Veteran Joe Standifird. But before we get into the episode, are you enjoying the podcast? And go to the Lost Art website. That's the lostart.podbean.com. Go check it out. Be sure to click on that merchandise tab. Go in there, get you some cool gear, get a hat just like I got on here. You can get a shirt, you can get a coffee mug, anything like that to help support the podcast and get our veteran voices out for all to hear. You can also check us out on YouTube at The Lost Art with Andrew Cox. Be sure to smash that like button, follow, subscribe, all that other good jazz. And if you'd like to be a guest on the podcast and tell your veteran story, then email me directly at thelostartwithandrewcox@gmail.com. All right. With that out of the way, Joe, how you doing today?
Yeah, man. It's, like we were saying before the intro, last time I saw you were in the drill field. It was Gunny Cox and Gunny Standifird back then. So it's good to see
That's
you, man.
right. Yeah,
So,
it's good to see you.
yeah, and
Go ahead.
congrats again on your retirement. So,
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Much appreciated. Yeah, it's been a hot minute. And I don't know really your whole story, and I'm excited to hear it. So it should be a good time.
yeah, to be honest, I don't. This is the first time I've ever told my whole story. So this be kind of interesting. So, I
Nice.
thought,
All right. Well, hey, let's start at the beginning. Like, where did you grow up? And then kind of talk us through how you eventually got into the military.
okay. So I grew up. I live in Escondido right now, and I grew up in Oceanside, Vista, and Escondido. Back when Oceanside was nowhere near as nice as it is now. A lot of crime. Um, Coast Highway was called Hill Street back then. I'm sure a
Nice.
lot of vets on this will remember that. Even the older vets who were stationed in Camp Pendleton during those years. Um, kind of rough growing up. I had, single mom, raising three kids, doing what you can to just put food on the table, worked two jobs, graveyard shifts. And so I kind of fell in a rut, as a lot of teenagers do, and partied a lot in high school, dropped out. And then the trigger for me was to, go back to school and get my high school education was I was working at McDonald's. And, my idea back then is I wanted to make money. So I just dropped out and worked at McDonald's, right?
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
which is hindsight being 2020 stupid, right? So my work permit expired, and they said you have to go back to school and get a work permit, or you can't work any longer. So I did that, and I went back continuation. I went to a continuation high school, and I said, you know what? Let me just get this done. And I knocked out. I caught up, knocked out, and graduated high school. Got my diploma, and then when I turned 18, my mom's like, I'm done with you. You're out of the house. So
Okay.
nowhere to go, no money really. I moved up to Bakersfield and lived with my sister and got me a good job at a title company because she was a loan officer. And then that company folded, and then I was out of a job. And then I went to Pizza Hut. So to
Okay.
get to why I joined, I'll be honest with you, I didn't like Marines growing
Okay.
up
Well,
because
you grew up around them.
well, that's exactly why I saw them on Hill Street with their vinyl red jackets. You probably remember those, and like
Yeah.
you know, blue jeans and their Cadillac boots. Now a lot of
Yep.
these young Marines now they don't know what Cadillac boots are, but so they were just annoying, right? And so anyway, so I'm up in Bakersfield. I got a job at Pizza Hut, and uh, just trying to make ends meet. You know what I mean? For
Yeah.
almost homeless. And then my one of my fellow drivers pops in and says, as we're needing dough, and says, "Hey man, I'm joining the Marine Corps. You want to join?" And I'm not kidding you. I thought about it for 5 seconds. I said, "Screw it, why not?" And,
Wow.
and 3 weeks later, I was in boot camp on the buddy program. Lo and behold,
Wow.
not knowing what I know now, he just wanted a promotion, guaranteed PFC, and he got it right.
Uh-huh.
So, but yeah, that's how I joined. I didn't have any aspirations to join the military, and but that's how it happened.
Wow. That's really cool. I mean, you gave it 5 seconds thought and you were like, yeah, all right, no big
Yeah.
deal.
Well, it's because I didn't have a future. I had no money, and a lot of young kids out there they can relate to this, right?
Oh yeah.
Where they don't, especially in today's economy. That's a separate conversation, but you know, no money, don't know what to do with their future. They came up poor like me, no opportunity for college. And I was like, you know what? This is probably the best opportunity for me to be successful. So, yeah.
Yeah, very nice. So at this point you said it was a 3 week transition going into boot camp, those types of things. So were you mentally prepared? Were you physically prepared? And then what was that like heading down to MCRD to learn how to be a Marine?
Yeah. So a story happened along the way in that 3 week period, right? So this is the retard that I was. Physically prepared? No, by no means. I was always physically active. I always grew up doing sports, always basketball. Actually, did a year of soccer in high school. I was no good at it, but football, I did all that, right?
Right.
Um, so I knew I could run, but I wasn't in the gym or nothing. And so then in that 3 week period, I go out with my sister, older sister, she's married, and she has this alcoholic husband. And uh we go out on a joyride in this Pontiac new Grand Am that he had, and he's drinking and driving, and I got an open container at 18 years old. Cop pulls me over, pulls
Oh
him
no.
over. Yeah, he passes the DUI, and I get a ticket. So then I got to show up to a judge before I go to boot camp. So then I
Wow.
go through that. Yeah, he whatever, community, find me and everything else. But mentally, I think mentally I was prepared because I had survival instincts growing
Mhm.
up. I lived in very bad neighborhoods. Lived around gangs. My whole upbringing. So mentally, I had nowhere else to go. I had nothing else to do. So my thought process was, you've got to do this,
Right.
because if you don't, you have nothing else. So yeah, physically not so much. Mentally, I think I was nervous, but I think I was as prepared as I could be. So
Right. Ah, nice. So once you got to boot camp, why don't you kind of talk us through your experience in boot camp, the good, the bad, the whatever you want to talk about though.
yeah, man, that was so long ago, dude. So I joined in 1995.
Mhm.
I get to boot camp. I make it through receiving. I pass the IST. And then pickup day happens. Um, and it was a shock. Like, holy, I still remember this. I was thinking to myself, what did I get myself into? Right. And I'm like, I've got to do this. I've got no other choice. And boot camp back then, so us being drill instructors, we can relate with drill
Oh
instructor
yeah.
duties, like what the recruits go through. It wasn't so much different than when I went than what it is today. I'm gonna tell you right now, right? Matter of fact, back then, what I learned back then, they could only IT you so many times a day. Now, obviously, we didn't know the IT card back then, but the IT
Mhm.
card now allows you to IT them every hour on the hour, right?
Yeah.
Um, that's not to say we didn't get IT'd, and they didn't, probably bend the rules a little bit. Um, but it was rough because my drill instructors got investigated, and
Hmm.
um, we had like the full metal jacket thing going on, where squad leaders are pulling recruits in and beating them, right?
Oh, wow.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and the less stellar recruits. So um those investigations went through, and yeah, and we're you know, drill instructors would threaten us with break time and everything else. So a lot of changing of hats in our platoon. Um, and we felt like we were the booger platoon, right?
Right.
And as far as me personally, I just played average Joe, right? I played average Joe. I wasn't the squad leader or the guide, but I wasn't a turd as well. So I didn't get very noticed, right? When I got
Hmm.
when I got in the quarter deck, I just went balls out, and hopefully the drill instructors will tell me to go away. Um, well, yeah, I got through that, successful 3 months, and they say the fastest way to graduate is fastest way to get out of boot camp is to graduate, right? So
That's a true statement. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, man.
so
All right. And before you joined, did you know what MOS you were going to be, or did you come in
that's
open
funny, dude.
contract?
So I was the perfect candidate for a recruiter to just basically give me whatever he needs for his quota, right? So
Hmm.
I wanted to be an LV crewman because looking at the MOS, I'm like, that'd be cool. Like that sounds cool, right? And so in my contract, I got guaranteed O4 logistics, and I'm like, what is that? And he gave me some sort of weird explanation. I didn't know anything about the military.
Right.
So and he also promised me $1,000 bonus, which back then, yeah, back then $1,000 is like holy crap, it's like $10,000 now. And so I was O4 logistics. I ended up being a landing support specialist, O481. But the funny thing about the bonus thing was when I was in receiving, right? They said it was I don't know submarine, I don't know who it was, but admin or something said if you think you got $1,000 bonus, line up here. So I'm like, all right, I got $1,000 bonus. That's what my recruiter told me. I line up, and she just going down the line of recruits like nope, yes, nope, yes. And she got to me, and she's like nope, and I froze for a second, like, are you freaking kidding me? And so 0481 landing sports specialist is what I ended up getting. Right
Okay.
back.
Very nice. Yeah, 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 yeah. So at this point, then you finished boot camp. Of course, MCT. You had to do that, and then to your MOS school. So, kind of talk us through all of that. How was that experience? And at your MOS school specifically, what were you learning while you were
Yeah,
there?
so when we got to MWest school, we had like a 3 week delay. So they put us on guard duty. That was an experience. And with live ammo, and we're guarding demo
Wow.
range. Yeah. So here's Private Standifird, guarding demo ranges, live ammo. And we had this very interesting guard chief, staff sergeant. And you realize then the staff sergeant's on FAP because he was a turd. Uh, yeah, and he would do this. He would make us do things like, if you did something wrong, you know, get 1,000 cigarette butts, take all tobacco out, put them in battalion formation. You know, so that was interesting. And then school itself. So we did a lot of cool things in my MOS. The helicopter support teams were, you know, you rig an artillery unit, and helicopter comes down, and it's right on top of you, and you're hooking it up, and it flies away with it. Learn beach operations where we actually do amphibious landings, control the beach, um, and a bunch of other things. But that was it was very good school. A lot of ruckus with just typical privates, the paycheck, right, on the weekends, and
That's right.
in Courthouse Bay, which is like in the middle of nowhere. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, it was just it was a good time. Learned a lot of
All
stuff.
right. Awesome. Yeah. Well, I mean, I would have loved doing that, especially the beach landings, all that type of stuff. I'm sure that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah, we got a lot of good stories about that.
Yeah. All right. And then, so you finished your MO. How long was the MOS school?
oh man, probably 6 weeks, maybe about
Okay.
6 weeks. I could be wrong. Um,
Okay. And then where did you end up going your first duty station?
so, we got to pick. I think we picked like top three duty stations. Not that you were
Hmm.
going to get it or not, but I picked Okinawa, and
Nice.
because I wanted to travel, I want to get out of the country. I'm not never been one to be attached to home, and and not get away from home. I've never been outside of the state of California except for Mexico because we're right there.
Right.
Um, yeah, Okinawa, Japan is the first time I've been in an airplane. Well, prior to going to MLA school. So yeah, Okinawa.
Wow. And Oki's what you ended up getting, and you did the what seemed like probably 30 hours on a plane flight over there.
Oh, jeez.
You got
Yeah,
well,
I mean, yeah, when you only been on a plane for the second time in your life, it's like I hope we make it because like you've never done it before. So
yeah. And that's one heck
yeah,
of a flight. That's true.
yeah.
Um, okay, you go to Okinawa. Talk me through your first duty. I mean, was that going to be a 1 year unaccompanied, or was it multiple
Oh,
years?
back then it was 3 years.
Oh, okay.
And I wasn't married, so but even for a company, it was 3 years back then.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah.
When did they change to the 1 year unaccompanied?
Um, no, I take that back. No, you're right. It was 1 year unaccompanied. I extended uh I ended up doing 6 straight years. So you're right. It was 1 year
Wow.
unaccompanied. I extended every year. And then my contract came up. I got married, and I'm sure we'll probably get to that. But and
Yeah, yeah.
then I got a company tour of 3 years. So yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're
Oh,
right.
okay, I got you. Well, hey, talk us through Okinawa. Like, what types of things were you doing? Where were you going? And what were the highlights for you?
Yeah. So the great thing about Okinawa, and I tell us to any, aspiring Marine or current Marine that's out there, is if you want to travel, if you want to deploy, you want to do some very cool things in a lot of different countries, not just here in the United States, go to Okinawa. So I deployed, oh man, Korea countless times, Australia, Thailand, Singapore, Hong Kong. I mean, all over the place. So I went
Right.
on the
Yeah.
Mew. Yeah, I went on the Mew after my first year there, and I spent about 2 years in the Mew. Um, and as you know, the 31st Mew is the only Mew in that AOR. So they go
Mhm.
out for 2 or 3 months, come back because they have to maintain a constant presence. So we were always, it wasn't just the 6 months like here in the States, and then, you know, uh, you're down for a year and a half,
Right.
you know, and you're constantly on the go. And so it was amazing to be able to go to different countries, do work with different, armed forces because they all operate differently. And building that relationship with our allies was just a really awesome experience. So
Yeah. Very.
there's a lot going on in the Pacific, you know.
Oh,
So
yeah. What
yeah.
was your favorite places to go while you were over there?
Oh man, it depends on what kind of flavor you're looking for. Uh, being a young Marine, Thailand was a lot of fun, right?
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I got to be careful there, but Thailand was a lot of fun. Australia was really cool because the Australian people just absolutely love Marines. Um,
Okay.
oh yeah, they'll bring you in their homes and everything, feed you and all that,
No
you know.
kidding. Wow.
Oh yeah, Australia's really cool. Um, Korea, the problem with Korea is, you know, whenever Marines go anywhere, we always go to the worst spots, right? Like we never get the cool spots. And so
Yeah.
Pohang is I believe they have SOFA status now, but they did back then. Um, so Korea we're in the poor town of Korea, so there's not a whole lot to do where we were at. But I've been there 7 times, so I've been all over Korea. Um, and we used to do shore patrol out there in Korea
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
in uniform in
Oh, wow.
canvas. Yeah, so We catch knuckleheads out there doing something stupid. We chase them. They try to run away from shore patrol, you know. Um, but it was fun, a lot of fun. So, but Korea was cool because the training you mentioned amphibious operations, right?
Hmm.
Um, it is freaking cold there, right? And I remember one specific operation where we were doing an amphibious operation at 3 o'clock in the morning. And so I'm on the second wave, sitting on an LCU, floating back and forth, waiting for the grunts. They were the first wave, waiting for them to secure the beachhead. And I remember looking at my CO, and me being a young Lance Corporal, I'm like, the CO's that's the guy, right? He's hardcore, right? He's turning
Yeah.
purple, you know. So he's turning purple, and I'm like, this is not gonna be good. So, but we slam the beach, we do our op, and it was a good deal. So I think to answer your question, a lot of every country has is different flavor of fun and adventure.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so
Okay. And then, so you spent your first enlistment there, then you tried to, or you reenlisted
yeah,
and stayed out there. And you had mentioned that is the reason you stayed out there because you ended up getting married?
yeah. So I met a my wife today of 27 years now. Yeah, 27 years. We've been married. Japanese, and I met her in Okinawa, and
Okay.
so for stability reasons, I wanted to. We had a baby coming. I just wanted to just provide some stability to my wife, not make it a complete shocker to bring her to the States right away. Soon
Yeah.
after we've been married, so that was my biggest reason why. Of you know, not just re-enlisting, but staying in Okinawa for another 3 years.
Right. Yeah. And then now at this point, what were you a corporal, sergeant?
I was a corporal.
Corporal at
Yeah,
this point? Okay.
yeah.
So newly re-enlisted, did you end up staying in the same unit?
Um, so I was with what was it called back then? Third TSB, third support battalion. I think third TSB. Went to the MU and then came back to third TSB.
Okay. Very nice. And then your second 3 years that you were there, now you're married and everything. So what was the differences in the first three versus the last three that you were there?
Well, I got promoted and started learning leadership, right? So
Hmm.
I was a little more grounded, obviously because I had more responsibilities with having a wife and a kid. They were my primary focus. You know, obviously the Marine Corps was my main focus. And I know some people out there that haven't experienced being in the Marine Corps don't understand what that means, but while you're in the Marine Corps is your number one focus,
Yeah.
and family is number two. But you treat family as number one, if that makes any sense at all. Because you're not,
Yeah.
if the Marine Corps tells you to go somewhere, you got to go, right?
Yeah.
If
Yeah,
your wife tells
absolutely.
you you need to stay home, you can't listen to your wife. You got to go, right? So,
True.
so the second 3 years, I started to develop some leadership skills. NCOs back then, not that NCOs today aren't, they are the backbone of the Marine Corps.
Hmm.
NCOs back then had a little more responsibility in the sense that you were looked upon by your subordinates in a much more respected manner, more fierce manner, I guess. They almost feared you in a way.
Right. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so I learned how to be an NCO and how to properly lead my Marines, and I started developing a reputation where I'm like, you know what, I'm good at this. You know, I don't think I'm just the average Joe out there, no pun intended. Um, yeah, I think I can make a career out of this, and I think I can be really good in making this a career. And that's when it really started to click for me. Um, and then right before I left, 9/11 happened.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if you want to wait to get into that, but yeah. So my last 3 years, that's kind of what I was going through.
Right. Yeah. And you said 9/11 happened while you were over there at this
Yeah.
point.
So
Okay.
9/11 happened 2 months before my rotation date.
Wow.
And yeah, so a couple of crazy things happened during that time frame. I was sitting in my base housing, and my brother, it's like, and forgive me my time frame, but it was like in the middle of the night. I was up playing a video game, and I never played video games, right? It
Hmm.
was on. We were in the middle of a typhoon, so we couldn't go to work. So for everyone out there, when you have typhoons in Okinawa, they lock you down, and you have to shelter in place inside your residence and everything else. So uh, my brother calls me and says, "Joe, you need to turn on the TV right now." I'm like, "What are you talking about, Danny?" He says, "Terrorists are attacking America," and I thought he was flat out crazy. What the hell are you talking about? Terrorists are attacking America. And that's when I turned on the TV and I saw that the first two towers had been hit. Right.
Yeah.
I still remember this. We're all captivated by this, right?
Hmm.
This our generation. We all know where we're at that moment in life. And I remember thinking to myself, "We're going to war. Like this is happening." And my wife gets worried as we're watching this. Her husband's in the Marine Corps. She know what this. We haven't been in combat. That point, I've been in it for 8 years, right?
Yeah.
And we're close to 8 years, 7 years, maybe 6, 7 years. And we'd never been in combat. I was just deploying my butt off during peacetime.
Right.
And, and so I remember a barracks meeting happened where all the Marines came into the lounge in the barracks with the platoon sergeant, and we all came down. I came down from my house. The barracks was down the hill, and just the emotions in that room. You know, just the military is just a pot full of people from all over the place. And, you know, we had friends in there that had, family in New York, right?
Right.
So here I got orders to go home, right? Back to Camp Pendleton. The base is just now we're overseas, we're in another country, right? So there's
Right.
security everywhere, Marines, armed Marines, pulling security at the gates, um, security on the base itself. And one thing about Japanese is they always put the salt, and my wife does it too. She makes me do it whenever I get a new car or whatever. But salt bags in glove compartments. Well, this is when the anthrax thing was coming down too, right?
Oh, right.
Remember
Yeah.
that? Where anthrax was being
Hmm.
sent to senators and stuff. So there
Yeah.
was that going on as well. So I remember seeing this. My battalion headquarters overlooks the front gate. And I
Okay.
remember seeing this. This is just one example of how crazy it was. I remember seeing this car coming through the front gate, and next thing you know, they erect a GP tent over the car. So now the car is in a tent at the front gate, right? Because they
Right.
were doing the mirror thing under all the cars. I've never seen a car was coming through, right? This little old Japanese lady sitting on the curb, poor lady. They found a box taped under her car, and when they
Oh
opened the
no.
box, there was a white powdery substance. It was salt. It
Yeah.
was salt
Oh man.
to chase away the bad spirits. So, anyways, but yeah, just a lot of pure craziness going on during that time. And I finally PCS back to the States, and yeah,
What
ended
did
up
you
surrendering.
PCS on time, or were you
I
stuck
did
there a little while? You did.
PCS
Wow. Okay.
in November, 2 months later.
Wow. And this was your wife's first trip out of Okinawa?
She had visited the States one time before she met
Okay.
me. But yeah, first time living in the States. Yeah. So
Wow.
her
What was
first
that?
time, her first time going to America, she went to Kentucky, of all places, and she hated
Very nice.
it.
Yeah. 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 A little,
So
it's a little different there sometimes.
mm,
So, what was that transition like for you? Going now, now we're looking at going to combat. New wife, first time living in the U.S.
yeah.
And a child at this point. Kind of how what all was going through your mind, her mind, as you guys were doing this transition?
Yeah, it's a very good question, man. So, um, imagine coming to the United States for the first time, not being a citizen. You got to go through customs. You have this envelope that's sealed that you can't open because she's an immigrant. Um,
Hmm.
Comes in and now she's got to apply for a social security card. We already applied for a green card. This paperwork allows her to exist in the United States until those documents come in. So it's a new world for her. So now I
Yeah.
got a new duty station. I check in. At this point, I had a very good reputation amongst the community. People that PCS'd out, staff and SEALs and officers. And so it was nice because when I checked in my first unit, um, it was crazy, man. I had people try to grab me up to their company, you know, staff and SEALs and officers, right? So it's
Hmm.
good to be welcomed like that. But I'm also dealing with, getting my family settled in and everything else and all that. Um, and then I remember checking into my unit, man. And I'm not kidding you. I check in my unit, in my alpha's office, I'm a sergeant, and then I get pulled in two different directions, right? So first was the alpha company. First sergeant, the first thing he asked me was, "What's your tap size?" And for those out there, then what tap gear is, tap gear before we had desert camis, we had desert camis that were issued to you if you were going to a location that required you to wear desert camis. The old chocolate chip ones, right?
Yep.
And that was tap gear, and along with some other stuff. But so I'm getting my tap gear sizes. They were planning a contingency to go to Afghanistan or go to Norway first, straight to Afghanistan. I got called on leave before even checking in by a buddy of mine who was with the unit saying, asking me all these questions. Are you good to go? And the motivator in me says, yeah, I'm ready to go. I can do this right away. And my family's not settled, right?
Right. Yeah.
But I'm like, send me now. This 9/11 thing just happened. I'm ready to go, right? Um, Long story short, I ended up not going, which was good because the movement should never happen to begin with. They got pulled back a month later. Um, so yeah, so I ended up in the an S3 operation instead of going to Alpha Company. The master guns in S3 says, nope, you're coming over here with me. So
Okay. Wow. So in the S3 shop, learning about all the training and things like that. How did you enjoy that job itself specifically?
it was good because I was the current future operations NCO, and any operations that were being planned by the company, that info had to come to me, and I had to put things together and um, make sure certain logistics were in place for them to conduct the operation, um, and things like that. So I got to learn the higher level of operational planning at the battalion level, which really helped me, when I went back down to the company later on, and my ability to conduct platoon operations or later on like company operations, and understanding how you know, that chain of command of operational planning worked. So it was good. It was
Right.
good.
Wow. And not everybody gets that opportunity for sure. And
Yeah,
getting that bigger picture, I mean, that kind of sets you ahead of your peers in understanding what's going on. So I say you're fortunate in being able to do that. Uh,
yeah.
but
It sucks though because you don't want to be in the S shops. You want to be down in the company, right?
right.
Um, but yeah, you know, looking back on it, it absolutely was a great experience. Helped me with the rest of my career. So
Yeah, most definitely. Especially the first sergeant route, stuff like that. I mean, you had a good idea of what it was before you ever got there.
yeah, and
So
you learn more things along the way as well. So
yeah, very true, very true. All right, well, so walk me through your time in this. Well, I guess you were at S3 and then eventually went to the company, but walk us through all of that.
so during that time, we are preparing for the invasion into Iraq, right? So I was part of that.
Right.
I was part of that planning as well because our battalion was tagged to go, and we did go. And so we deployed in 2003, February, I believe it was 2003, I'm sorry, to Kuwait. And
Hmm.
just, I mean, you can only imagine how you've never been in combat before. The last time our country had been in combat was the Gulf War, right?
Hmm.
And uh, you're like, is this really going to happen? We had done so much planning up to that point. It's crazy how much planning we did for it. And then we go, and it's like, oh crap, this might happen, right? So
Right.
for a month, we're sitting in Kuwait in these big, call them Haji tents, right? Um, cots and everything else, and porta johns, and we had a trailer for showers, and we're doing things like, man, we're hiking in the middle of the desert in mop gear and gas masks, yeah, like we're doing these things that we really haven't done a whole lot before, and because the SEAL's like, he's trying to prepare us, and we were prepared before going into it. He was trying to get us on a mindset, right?
Right. Yeah.
So we're building bunkers, um, underground bunkers, well, holes in the ground basically with sandbags and a covering over it.
Right.
Phil, we had like 12 bunkers, I think, that we built, and the CO had told us every Marine, to include myself, will fill. I think it was he did the actual math on it. I think it was 70 sandbags a day. So we all had to
Wow.
fill 70 sandbags a day, and we did it. And yeah, dude, it was no joke. And then uh the war happened. We start getting the air war, or the what do you call it? Well, Baghdad start. We start dropping bombs on Baghdad, right?
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Shaping the battlefield, and then we started getting scuds coming in
Hmm.
at us. And I still remember, man, and that's when the war started, right? So scuds are coming in at us, directly at us, and we had run through drills on this before. And think of MASH, that siren, like the hand. It was
Yeah.
like that. The siren was like that, right?
Okay.
And I'm a bunker commander as a sergeant. Everyone was assigned a particular bunker. So the process for that was get in your mop gear, go to mop level 4, right?
Right. Yeah.
And get to your bunker. We get to the bunker, and I have to get a head count. Um, and then you pick up the phone and the field phone, and then they're giving a countdown on when the next scud's going to impact. And it's literally
Okay.
2 minutes to impact. And I would relay it to the Marines. 1 minute to impact, 30, 10, 9, all the way down to 1. And you are defenseless. And
Wow.
you're defenseless. You're sitting in this bunker, not knowing if it's going to hit you or not. And you could hear the impacts, right? I'm telling you right now, man, the enemy is smarter than you think, right? So they
Yeah.
were trying to wear us down. So for the next 2 or 3 days, we're getting literally, a couple hours of sleep, maybe. So it was the shock on awe on us, right?
Yeah.
You you end up just going back to your tent and just staying in your mop gear, and then
Wow.
you hear the siren come on, and you're just dragging your crap back to the bunker, and you're just like, I'm so tired. 1 minute to impact, 30 seconds, 10, and then eventually myself, I was part of the forward element for the battalion, so it was a team of 9. We were the most forward element of our battalion. We ended up
Right.
getting a convoy and crossing the border. So
Okay. Well, I got a quick question for you. So,
yeah,
you knew the exact time of the impacts that were coming,
yes,
although you didn't know the exact location where it was going to happen. But
no,
that right there is that messes with your head a little bit. Can you talk to that? Like, how did that impact you and your Marines?
I'll tell you what it's a very good question, man. You end up initially, you're like, this could be it, right? And
Yeah.
you end up learning to just deal with it, and so you become numb to it, because it's happening so often, right? So by the
Right.
time that once the war kicked off, we were in country in Iraq. I think 2 days later, 2 or 3 days later, maybe, like myself.
Right.
So by the time we got in Iraq, it's like, okay, here we go. You're already prepped for it
Hmm.
mentally. Okay,
Okay.
I've already experienced something that is jarring in combat, and so I've got a small taste of it, right? So
Right.
to answer your question, yeah, in the beginning, it's like, you know, you're afraid, right?
Hmm.
You're in fear, not to the point where you're trembling or anything else. You're just like, as Marines, we always try and keep together, but in your head, you're like, I got a wife, I got a kid, I just want to go home to my wife and kid. Please God,
Hmm.
make sure that help me get out of this. So,
Right. Yeah.
but
Absolutely. And speaking of your wife and kids, now, at this point, how long had she been in the U.S. when you deployed?
oh man, so that's another thing, dude. It's so we see we got here in November 2001, a little over a year.
Okay.
So
Wow.
and yeah, and think about it. I had to get her a driver's license, get her, situated to America. I mean, it's all the
Yeah.
little things, right, that come with living in another country, and I've got to prepare to deploy. So one little caveat I want to throw out there is for anyone listening, I can't tell you how many times I deployed. It's countless times. One thing I always did, I'm so glad I did it, was I went through a deployment checklist with my wife every single time. And I had a
Mm.
binder for her for all important documents, spreadsheet for all of our accounts. Um,
Oh, smart.
so
Yeah.
so if anything happened to her, which things did happen to her while I was gone multiple times, she would be able to handle it on her own without any assistance. Um,
Wow.
so yeah, and
Now that,
that deployment to Iraq, I didn't talk to her for like 3 4 months. I couldn't.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Watching it on TV.
Yeah. Which is horrible.
Yeah,
Because you don't know what's going on, and you don't get to talk to them, of course, you think back to previous wars, and that's just the way it was, they wrote letters back and forth type of deal.
oh,
But
and that's what we did. We just wrote letters.
mhm.
There's no
Yeah.
internet, so
Yeah. Wow. Well, now when you set your wife up with your checklist, was this a personal checklist, or something that like your command provided for you?
I can't, that particular. I'm pretty sure the command provided a checklist. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, probably 100 times, 9 times out of 10, I had a command checklist to go off.
Okay.
And then I remember that, and I'm fast forwarding here, but when I became a first sergeant, well, even as a platoon sergeant, um,
Hmm.
I always made sure, because of my own experiences, um, that my Marines always had a deployment checklist, and I would
Yeah.
stress that every time. You never know what's going to happen. So, but
Yeah, that's a good point. I saw something on I think it was on Facebook, I guess yesterday, today, something like that. But it was basically saying uh how people don't understand what an 18-year-old goes through when they have to go in and literally start
yeah,
signing up, for what happens if I die, and you're
yeah,
doing your will, and you're doing all that type of stuff. It is humbling, when you go in and do those things, especially at a young age.
yeah. Well, I mean, you know, I I would say, tell me somebody out there that's 18 years old that's not in the military has actually done a will,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And it's that old saying, and it's 100% true. When you join the military, you're signing a blank check
Hmm.
payable with life, right? And there's one thing I even say to this day to young young veterans, um, whether they're active or they're out. Um, it's important they know that they are the 1%. They are the
Yeah.
1% that said, I will sign a blank check payable with my life. And I think it's very important for every American out there to realize
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah. Oh man. All right. So kind of talk me through the rest of your deployment there. Because you went across the line of departure, you're in Iraq. Now did you make it all the way up to Baghdad?
it. I did, yeah.
You did, okay.
So going into Iraq, imagine a huge, they're tank ditches, big, um, just wide ditches that the Iraqis. It was a formidable border. Like they had layers of defense. Um, and so if a tank were to go up to it, the tank would fall in, right? So
Right.
so we were to breach the border, got in, and when you get in Iraq, so Saddam, he lit all his oil refineries on fire, right? So you see, you're driving past all these oil refineries, and there's just huge fireballs coming on top of them, right? And you're literally driving. And I'm in a softback Humvee. I was a Humvee. I was driving a Humvee,
Right.
softback, right? The whole up armored thing didn't start until after this war, until terrorists started
Right.
bombing us with IEDs. Um, I know it's crazy for probably people here nowadays, but yeah, softback Humvee. Um, and you're driving by these oil refineries, and you can feel the heat. It's so intense that I had to lean over as I'm driving past these refineries because it's burning, you know.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So then we get to our first attack position, we call it. Um, we get set up, get our comms set up back to our battalion. With the rest of our battalion still in Kuwait, and give our status report and everything else. And then at some point we get this. It was like living in the apocalypse, right? Where we get this massive dust storm. This is the middle of the day,
Yeah.
and it turns the sky, everything around us. The dirt just gets everywhere, man. Dirt is in every crevice in your body, right? We get this massive dust storm. Um, and think of movies like The Mummy, where you see those huge dust storms come in.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's that. It's that. And the sky turns orange, completely orange. You can't see, you can barely see the hand in front of your face. And the battalion is telling us, you need to move now to our next attack position. My OIC at that moment told the battalion, he was a major, told the battalion, we can't move. We can't move. And they kept telling us, you need to move. Okay.
Oh my
So
God.
yeah, I'm not kidding you. The pressure was intense, man. Because weather doesn't stop wars. In this case, it did. The battlefield just stopped, dude. And so uh, we moved like 200 feet, and my OIC notified the battalion that we moved. So um, yeah. So
Mission
then
accomplished. That's good.
mission accomplished. We moved 200 feet, right? So then it gets more scarier because we're we're conducting blackout operations. In other words,
Mhm.
you're conducting. The enemy is. We're in a fight. We're in a lot of ports of some casualties. And some of those casualties are because we're in blackout operations and the drivers can't see at night. I mean, you're talking any unit, whether it's infantry, logistics, aviation, they can't see at night while they're driving, trying to push north. And speed was the key for this thing, right? And that was
Right. Yeah.
Donald Rumsfeld, who was the Secretary of Defense at that moment, was speed was the key, right? Get to Baghdad.
Right.
And I'll kind of get into that a little bit, how that created some problems, but um, so it was hard to see the vehicle in front of you, and we have reports of you know trucks falling off bridges. Marines died.
Wow.
Yeah. Um, so I'd put like a chem light in front of the vehicle in front of me so I could see. And I'm telling you, man, you got no sleep. You're up for 2, 3 days at a time, and I'm telling myself the lives of my Marines are my responsibility in this vehicle.
Right. Yeah.
And so yeah, so um we eventually get to the next attack position. The problem that I was kind of referring to before was because we were moving so fast, created a logistics gap, and
Yeah.
also and so it was harder for us to reach the infantry to provide them what they need to continue the fight, and
Hmm.
artillery. Um, but we did it. But it also, the other issue was is they were going so fast, they were bypassing um, pockets of enemy resistance.
Mm,
But
yeah.
we had the enemy attacking logistics trains as well,
Wow.
and so everyone was in the fight. Everyone was in the fight. Um, so yeah,
Wow. That's it just seems wild that it was going that fast. Here you are, you're in the logistics, you're trying to supply them and all that type of stuff, but they're moving so fast, you just can't get through them. And then to have
yeah,
the enemy, they're passing them up so they can
yeah,
get to Baghdad.
yeah.
That's wild.
Well, it got to the point where Marines were eating one MRE a day
Oh
because
wow.
yes, one MRE a day because the focus was the most needed supply was artillery shells.
Yeah.
So there was priorities on what you got to the front. Um, and artillery shells at that point was it because An Nasiriyah was where we met the most resistance. We
Hmm.
were expecting it out. We're expecting that resistance at Al Qud, which is where I was at,
Right.
and we got very little resistance there, not as much as we thought. And we got at An Nasiriyah, which was one of the bloodiest battles in that war. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, and dude, there was so much. Oh man, the military might. I don't think we'll ever see it again in my lifetime, but just the front of military equipment invading, going into Iraq,
Hmm.
was impressive, man. And we would see, and if your vehicle went down on the side of the road, if you couldn't fix it within a few minutes, I mean, the enemy is all around you, right? You had
Hmm.
to you had to get another truck, and you left that vehicle on the side, perfectly good vehicle with a flat tire on the side of the road.
Oh wow.
Yeah, there was just they call it highway, the highway from hell because it was just vehicles littered along the way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Wow. Holy cow. But
yeah,
now you were with them as they have pushed all the way into Baghdad. So were you there for once they actually got in Baghdad?
no. So I was outside of Baghdad at that point, and we had what was new to us at that time, the Blue Force Tracker,
Hmm.
right? They had just fielded it to us right before we invaded, and you can see all the dots around Baghdad getting ready to
Yeah.
push in to take over, right? When I went to Baghdad, it was crazy, man. It was like when we liberated France in World War II, when they're all on the
Really?
side of the streets praising us like a victory parade. That's how the Iraqis treated us at that moment.
Yeah.
Was I mean, we're driving through and they were praising us by the thousands on the side of the street. But there was looting happening as well. They
Yeah.
were they were using the opportunity to loot everything. But yeah, they loved it like down Saddam. And
Yeah.
so the attitude changed over the years, but yeah, it was pretty wild.
Wow. Now I remember one of the iconic things is the Saddam statue as it toppled over.
Yeah,
That was one of the big iconic things.
yeah,
Uh, but yeah, I just remember sitting there watching that, and I was like, "Oh my God, man, it's
yeah.
surreal."
And you got to understand, like in that country, Saddam's face is everywhere, was
Oh
everywhere.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and every time you passed, you know, a Saddam statue or a painting or whatever, it was riddled with bullets or it was painted
Hmm.
over. Yeah, they hate him, man. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
so and
I
the
mean, he was a true
currency,
dictator.
oh, he absolutely was. He was killing his own people. So
Yeah. Wow. So at that point, then you were, I'm assuming what, like 3, 4 months at that point into it.
yeah, so I was there for 5 months, I think, altogether before we.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then so you went back down south at that point toward Kuwait.
yeah, and luckily we made it back down south because my Humvee was so wrecked by the time. I mean, you're doing no maintenance. I mean, you're doing whatever maintenance you can, but you got no parts to maintenance for the vehicle.
Right. Yeah.
Um, it started making funny noises, and I'm like, please God, just get me back down to Kuwait because we'd have to ditch it and find
Yeah.
another way back to Kuwait, you know. And yeah, it chugged right along, and we finally got the go ahead to come back, which thank God, because I had talked to my wife. The first time I talked to my wife was we were in the middle of nowhere, and this convoy came up to us, and the convoy commander had a sat phone,
Oh,
and
nice.
I asked the lieutenant, I said, "Sir, can I please use the sat phone to call my wife? I haven't talked to her in months." And I remember calling her. She's bawling, dude.
Yeah.
And my family, my family, my mom, my sisters, they have no idea what's going on. They keep bugging
Hmm.
my wife, obviously. Do you know what's
Yeah.
going on with Joe? What's going on? She's like, I have no idea. They're all watching the news. And when I called her, she told me she got in an accident. So going back to the deployment checklist,
Yeah.
because I did the deployment checklist with her, her being, you know, green card holder in America for the first time, she knew exactly what to do, right? With my little
Uh-huh.
girl in the car seat.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah. So, anyways, just thought I'd throw that in there as well.
And that's something that as a young Marine you don't even think about, to be honest with you.
Wow. Yeah.
And you're like, no, it'll be all right, no big deal. But to have those checks and balances there, I mean, that's
Mhm.
huge, especially when you're not there and you can't talk to them and help them through anything. It's a whole new ball game whenever that happens.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So, you got to take care of your family. You can't forget about them. And, people got to remember, you know, when we're deployed, they're deployed too.
Yeah.
You know, you're just worrying about yourself. Our wives have to take care of everything that we were responsible for at home, as well as their own
Hmm.
duty. So yeah, you cannot be selfish when it comes to thinking about your family.
Yeah, very true. And I mean, I got to tell you, what you said, 27 years. That's what you're at right now.
I did 24.
No, 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 27 marriage,
Oh yeah,
marriage,
yeah, 27. Yeah, 27.
27.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So you got married in 90, what was it?
97.
97. Okay.
Yeah.
I got married in
No, no.
96. So
Yeah, yeah, 97. Yeah.
yeah, I got married in 96. And
Okay.
it's rare to see people that have stayed married that long in the
I
military.
know.
Uh, so kudos to you and your wife and your family. That's an awesome thing to be able to say, that you guys are still pushing on and doing good things. So
Yeah,
good for
you
you,
too,
man.
brother. I mean,
Yeah.
our wives, it's hard to find a good woman while you're in the military that could be an anchor for you and let you go
Yeah.
have fun, right?
Hey, to all the listeners out there, if you're struggling, need some help, anything like that, you're feeling about hurting yourself, remember the VA does have some resources for you. You can always dial 988, press option 1. You can always text 838-255, or you can go to veteranscrisisline.net, click on that chat icon. Any of those are going to be able to put you in contact with somebody that's going to be able to help you out. One veteran life loss is one too many. I care about you. I know Joe cares about you. The entire veteran community cares about you. So please reach out for help. With that, Joe, one last time, thanks for coming on. To all the listeners out there, stay motivated, change your socks.